And I had random strangers come to it and this and that. And then it got popular. But people started chewing through my bandwidth. And it became very expensive to host. So then I said, you know what? There's this YouTube channel, this YouTube website. I'm going to use the bandwidth. So I'm going to upload one of my mix on the website. And then I'm going to take it and embed it on my website so that people can stream it from my website. But it's actually running off YouTube servers. And then I did that, went to bed. The next morning, my email inbox was full of messages. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? So I thought maybe YouTube had caught me and they were probably sending me cease and desist messages. But then it was people saying, I love this music. Who's this guy? I love this. What is this? And I'm like, what's going on? I don't know these people. And then I went to the YouTube channel and it had 1,000 views. I was like, wow. Like all my mixes on my website, all together, there were maybe like 600. And this one mix I've had for less than 24 hours had 1,000 views. So then I remembered, so then I told myself, so it seems that people use YouTube to listen to music. Given the fact that I remembered my mom doing that, I said, you know what? Instead of having song after song, the way other people are doing it, I'm just going to upload my mixes over there. So then I started feeding the machine. I mean, I was uploading so many mixes, and my music, it started taking off. And then one day, my older sister was pregnant, and I told her, oh, you know what? I'm going to make you. Apparently, they said that if you play classical music for babies, they're going to grow. That's actually, it was to my sisters, and I said, I'm just going to make a classical music mix, so that you listen to it when you're at home. And then I uploaded it for my sister, and then I made it public, and that thing just went nuts. It hit 1 million within like a month, and when people subscribed, they started to like, who's this guy? And then they started listening to my other mixes. And here's the funny part: a lot of people who listen to my YouTube channel, they don't even know what house music is. They just know there's some music that they like. It makes the full, they call it techno, they call it electro, they call it whatever. All they know, they call it deep and dope or JaBig music. So they started listening to my music, and then the channel just took off like wildfire, And then, of course, everyone started uploading music on YouTube, and that's when somebody said, hang on a minute. Who's paying for this? And then that's when they started blocking and this and that. And by the time they started blocking mixes and all the DJs started getting on, and that's why now it's hard. I already had a lot of millions of views and my channel was established. Now, I like to downplay it and say it's because I got there first, but also the internet is merciless. If people don't like your stuff, they're not going to come back. So people kept coming back. So that's my very humble Canadian way of saying maybe it wasn't bad after all.
No, it's a good story. It makes a good story. And actually, it was a winning formula.
Yeah.
Without realizing in the beginning that you were going to win like this.
Yeah. Because it was crazy. Like I would upload it was just crazy. I had at one point before the adverts and this and that, there was actually somebody at YouTube headquarters whose job was to deal with me, and I could say whatever I wanted, like YouTube Canada I used to call there and say whatever I wanted. And then when they started with the copyrights, now I send an email, nobody even replies to me, you know what I mean? Because even though I make the money, but they cannot endorse my content because it's based on copyrighted music. Even though, they made the ads from it, so
they make money. They make money.
That's the thing. They make money.
You can't get, because you get constant copyright infringement flags, and when that happens, you can't monetize it.
Yeah, and here's the thing. One of the things that like YouTube is it's not to say that now nobody can do YouTube. You can, but it's a lot of try and error. And the secret to YouTube is actually to upload independent music. Stay away from anything from mainstream. Because the one thing I tell people is, right now I probably have 200 mixes on YouTube, but in total, I think I've uploaded up to 800. So that means 600 have been blocked or deleted, blacklisted, and this and that. So it's a matter of being relentless. And I found that that's what my saving. I don't know if it's a good thing or it's my obsession, but sometimes I'll upload a mix and it get rejected, and I'm like, okay, instead of editing out, I just go record another mix, and then I put the other ones on Mixcloud. Because for me, making music mixes, it's a way of therapy. I just record music, and then I'm like, oh, I'm done. I recorded it. Let me upload it. And again, here's something else that's a little bit weird. When I sit at my home, like wherever I am, and I said, I'm going to record a mix to upload on YouTube, and I upload it, it gets some views. It gets some views, nothing crazy. But when I was having a jam session, just me and myself and I, and happened to hit record and upload it, then the mixes goes nuts. And to this day, maybe it's because it's coming from within as opposed to me trying to please the crowd. But I found that the mixes that's why some of the mixes are the best. They're the ones that are not properly, the mixing is off, or it seems that I'm clowning around because I was at home, just no big serious. But those are the mixes that do very well. And I think it's maybe something within that just went all out there, or maybe I'm full of crap. I don't know. But with 600 mixes, like I've pretty much figured out some patterns that when I sit down and say I'm going to make a mix for YouTube, it never really works out fine. So that's why I stopped making mixes for music for YouTube. Now I just jam for myself and then share with YouTube.
So do you see yourself as a musical DJ or a virtual curator?
Well, I'm a DJ who happens to share the music on YouTube, because at the end of the day, YouTube is just where I archive, it's almost like an archive of what I've recorded. Like some of the mixes, also the live, the mixes are recorded from nightclubs, and I just recorded a set and I uploaded it. And so, yeah, so I'm a DJ. It's just that YouTube is my business card. That's how I like to put it.
Because this is the thing that people are not sure about. They know that you go out and play, like you've been touring now, around your back. But they know you more because of you being a content provider.
Yeah. Well, I know. Sometimes people say, "Hey, you're that YouTube DJ." I'm like, "No, I'm that DJ."
You're the YouTube DJ. Wait a minute. Oh, no, wait. I'm not the YouTube.
Yeah. like I'll never forget one time I went to New York City, and I was in Times Square. And Times Square is full of, I don't want to say characters because that's rude, but it's full of interesting, very people who can be a little bit eccentric.
Oh.
You know what I mean? And one of them goes, "Oh my gosh, it's him, it's you, you're from YouTube. I forgot your name. You're that guy with the mixes." And started yelling. All of Times Square turned around, looked at him, looked at me. And I was like, and then I went to the back streets. And then I'm like, okay, it looks a little bit sketchy. And then I went to the M&M store. And I hid there for like half an hour. And then eventually I walked back. And I'm like, wow, this is crazy. Like the YouTube channel, sometimes I'll go into I'll be hanging out in some weird parts of Toronto. And then someone comes and say, "Hey, you're that guy from YouTube." I'm like, "I'm actually a DJ." And they're like, "What are you doing here?" They're like, "Oh, I'm here for a gig." "So you're actually a DJ?" I'm like, "Yes, I'm DJ. I'm not just," and because people imagine me as being this teenager who's at his parents' home in his basement just making music and uploading them on YouTube. And I'm like, "No, I'm actually a DJ. And what you're hearing is the recordings of my work that I just decided to share with the world."
You do actually have that paparazzi thing going on then.
I mean, it's not like it happens to me every day, but when it happens, it always catches me off guard. Because the problem too is that in my lifetime, I've met a lot of people as a traveler, somebody who's lived abroad. And sometimes, so when people stops me, I'm like, who's this person? So my mind is trying to figure out who's this person because I don't recognize them. And then I realize, oh no, they know me from my YouTube channel. Or sometimes I'll be hanging out with my friends and somebody will come and say, "I don't want to interrupt you, but I just want to say, I listen to your music and this and that." So then I look at my friends thinking they're probably playing a prank on me and it's another friend of theirs. "No, okay, thank you very much." I'm like, yes, I know. And then the person goes. And then I'm like, "So do you know him?" And everyone is like, "No, it's your friend." I'm like, "No, I don't know him." "No, you know him." I don't know. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, it's somebody who was just showing appreciation for my music. But but then it goes to, one day I sat down and I thought about it. I'm like, if there are close to 200 million people, not like some of it is repetitive, but if it's over, let's say 200 million people who've listened to my mixes, I'm bound to bump into some of them in real life, So, and usually when I wear the hoodie, because they look at my face and then look at the audio. I'm like, I knew it. Deep and up. Some of them don't remember my name. They just go deep and up.
Yeah, because they remember the two words. They remember it right away.
Yeah. They're like deep and up, and they're like, actually my name is, and then I'll use my legal name. I say, actually my name is Jean. I'm like, no, that's not it. You JaBig. I'm like, yeah, JaBig is my DJ name, but I can't just go introduce myself as an artist name. I found that to be a little bit corny. So I just know my name is Jean, and I'm from Montreal, this and that. And like, I love your music and this and that. And then there's a funny story. There's one story I like to say. And do children listen to this?
No. This is an adult show.
All right. Okay. So I was in. How can I say with that? Okay. So I was somewhere in one city, and I was DJing, and then I finished my set, and then a bunch of DJs had come to hear me play, and we were out there hanging out in the DJ booth and this and that. After the set, like debriefing, talking, this and that. And then somebody came from the dance floor. It was a woman that came all the way from the dance floor. She came running, and she's yelling, JaBig! And I'm like, okay. And she comes all the way to the DJ booth. Like there were like 7 of us or something. And this is a true story because some of the people who were there, they'll remember this. And she goes, I just want to tell you, I effed your music. I'm like, okay, because I don't even use that sort of language. So I was a little bit taken aback. And then I'm like, okay. And then I'm a little bit embarrassed because she said it very loud. Because when the music stops, people, your ears are usually a little bit, so then you tend to be louder, or maybe she was just a little bit louder than everybody else. And then you could see all the DJs just like, everyone just froze. Like 7 men all just like froze. And then she goes, my lovers know if we're effing, JaBig's gonna have to be playing. And I was like,
oh yes, the shagging moments with good music. Oh my god!
And then I was like, how do you even reply to that? And then I said, and then like damn, that's me. I didn't know what to say, so I just said, thank you for listening to my music. And actually I said, no, thank you for choosing my music. And I was like, but then my DJ friends were like, does this happen to you often? I'm like, it's always something that catches me off guard. It's always something that catches me off guard,
First of all, I want to ask you a question. Was the woman beautiful that came running in the booth?
I think everyone is beautiful.
Let's be realistic. In other words, would you date this type of person?
Well, I don't I guess that's one of those principles of mine. I don't mix business.
I'm asking. I'm saying from a looking perspective. First of all, if it was
honestly, okay, I know what you're asking, and I was trying to be evasive because I don't know if my mother is listening to this.
Oh, okay, Mom.
Asking
special questions, Mom. I know you're watching.
but let me put it this way: somebody with such confidence to come and say this, to be this like expressive in a nightclub, and she doesn't care. That's a woman who's gonna make the men out of me. And sometimes you have to know that some people are just too much to handle, and she would have taken me to school. Some of those. It's a little bit presumptuous to say that she told me that she made love to my music. She didn't say she was into me, but hypothetically, even she said that she was into me. I would have said, listen, I'm gonna need to notify Nest of Kin because I don't think I'm making it out of her life. You know what I mean? But that's all crazy story. I don't want Canadian, and we live in a very political society. I don't want people this getting out of control.
Everyone, let me explain. Let me clarify. There's an Amber Alert going out to everyone out there. There's a yellow light kicking in, not red. Yellow meaning warning. We've all been in experiences where alcohol and drugs are part of what's going on the dance floor. And even in my sets, I will say this, you have people come in the booth screaming at you, telling you things, and you just, like he said, you're taken off balance. You're basically off balance. If you're not ready for it, it is a moment where you're like, whoa, And then you have a whole bunch of people with you that's your audience watching the next move you're going to make.
Yeah.
You don't want to embarrass yourself. It's a horrible...
Actually, that's what makes me nervous, because all the guys froze.
You're worried about what's going to be said later, not what's going to happen now, right? You're worried. It's like...
Because everyone looked at her, and then they were like, oh, she said her piece.
JaBig, what are you going to do? What are you going to say?
Now what? And then, that was almost me. I've just said, oh, thank you for choosing my music to listen to. And then she's like, she said, thank you very much for the set. And then she went off, she left because they were shutting down the club. And the DJs were like, did we just hear what happened and this and that? And they were like, does this happen often? I'm like I said, it doesn't happen often. It just catches me off guard. And it's always like that. It's something that catches me off guard, I mean, and then, of course, on the other side of the spectrum, I was in New York City playing. And because this is the crazy part. I mean, you'll understand, how do I say this without saying it? Like, some of the people who come to my club are a little bit on the older side. And I was going to say, when you were DJing, it's because they were your age. But then I said, hang on a minute. That's implying something. But anyway, some of the people who come...
Let's just say some of the people come in middle-aged.
Yes, the middle age. And one time, I see like a couple. They're like somebody's, and I'm like, oh, they're probably somebody's, because I was playing at the W Hotel, and I was like, oh, it's probably some people's grandparents who happen to be at the hotel, they're checking in. And they come to me like, oh, actually, no, we came here to hear you play JaBig. And I'm like, oh my gosh, these are people's grandparents. And because that's what happens, some of the kids who are listening, who are discovering the music now, they bring their parents because their parents used to go out. Or some of the parents that used to go out, they bring the kids. So my nights are always weird. It's always like from early 20s until like mid 20s, and then it picks up again after 35. You know what I mean? And onwards. And then they said, hey, we came to hear you play, and we're like in our 70s, like back in the, we used to go out in our young days, and your music reminds reminds us of those eras, and that's why I came here to play. Actually, my sister, and then it was the man said my sister was supposed to be come with us, but she passed away. But she had said, oh, the best way to pay her an homage is to come dance, because we're supposed to be here to dance. So we came here to dance. We just want you to know that my sister would have loved to be here, because we're big fans. She was, we all three of us are big fans of you. And you're like, and sometimes, and things like that. I was in a club DJing, like you're out there partying, and somebody throws something like that at you, and you're supposed to stay professional and not break down and just keep on playing, and then you realize this is crazy. I literally wanted to use YouTube's bandwidth because I didn't want to pay mine. And this thing has just gone, it's content somewhere else. I can't even take it anymore. I'm like, this is just crazy. The power of music. And
I told you, it's a healer. It's crazy what it does.
It's insane. And then the last story I'm going to tell you, this is a funny one too. It's, so I had one mix. I had one mix that I played, and then I literally got two emails, let's say the same day. One was from a lady in New York City who said, oh, I just want to let you know, there was my niece had a cotillion, and then we played one of the mixes, and it went down very well. And I was like, a cotillion? I had no idea what the heck that was. And then I had to go Google it. And it turns out it's like it's like a whole debutante, this whole thing. It's apparently a thing that posh people do somewhere in America. I mean, I don't know what it is. It's an American thing. I've never heard of it.
Can I be honest with you? The only cotillion I know was the offset of Atlantic Records, Cotillion Records. I didn't even know what the hell cotillion. I was like, cotillion.
Yeah, I mean, all of you, if you don't know what that is, just Google it, because I don't know how to describe it.
Everybody Google cotillion, because we need to find out and let us know what it is.
I don't even know if that's how you pronounce it, because I remember reading it, so I don't remember.
You're right. No, it's cotillion. Cotillion. I know how you said it correct. Yes.
So from what I understand, it's like something where these young humans, they're getting, when they're 14 or 15 or 16, it's like high society. They're trying to, it's this whole thing that used to happen like in those like when Mozart was alive era, where everyone is trying to be like, hey, madame, voulez-vous danser, and all those things. So then I understood it, for me it was like, okay, it's some kids party. That's good. And then the next email was some guy from Amsterdam telling me, hey, JaBig, just so that you know, I'm some promoter. I promote sex parties. And whenever we have our parties, your music plays. And you just play. So just to let you know, next time you're in Amsterdam, let me know. I'll give you a pass. You can even come with your friend. You can come first, and then you can, everything is on, it's, and I'll just introduce you, all the women will love you. You can just come and there and go crazy. And I was like, now I'm thinking, this guy is, again, it's somebody playing a prank on me. But he had a link to his, way back when people used to have like websites. So I clicked on the website and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's true. But the reason I'm telling this story, it was crazy because it was these two people had written about one mix. So it showed me, it's so crazy how people use the same piece of the same mix for different things. And I was taken aback. I'm like, just music is just, all I know is that I put my music out there. What it becomes is outside my control, and it doesn't mean it's.
Do you actually pre-plan out these mixes, or you just do them?
Just do them. I'll go, for instance, on I'll go like I'll like, let's say for instance, if I'm sitting at home and I look at my record boxes, I'm like, oh, I haven't listened to these records in a while, and then I'm like, okay, let me just have a quick session. And usually the first record is the first record, the record I play first, it's the one that's going to determine the rest of the set. Or if there's one song I really want to play, then I'll build it around that set. I'm like, okay, I want to make this record the one in the middle. So then I'll start from the beginning and then towards the end. But most of the times my records, my mixes are not planned, because then it becomes planned and it's not as fun.
So it's
because the fun of it, some of the fun of it is having, the CDJ blinking, like it's about to run out, and you're out there thinking, what the heck am I going to play? It's part of the, adrenaline rush. And then you find something, and then within like 20 seconds, you've managed to bit match it, and then you play it, and then it's, it rolls in like, it's like, it's matched beautifully, and it's perfect. But the problem is that sometimes my mixes have a lot of mistakes. And sometimes when they have too many mistakes, I would just take it down. But then one commenter, one of the YouTube commenters, some DJs were making fun of my mixer, saying, look, he train wrecked. And then somebody wrote, well, at least we know he's mixing live and he's not using auto sync.
Good for you.
And I was like, all right. So now it turns out we have to put mistakes in our mixes to show that they're real. Or sometimes I'm mixing and people say, what? That mix ended pretty abruptly. Well, that's because I was mixing and then I want to do something and then I forgot that I was mixing. And the mix ended just there. But I don't plan my mixes. I really don't. I mean, I'll plan maybe, the most I'll plan is which songs I'm gonna play, and then I just improvise. The only time I would plan is if I have to do like, for instance, if I have to do like an album, and this is one of the things I actually miss, is that I became like a household name before, when the CD era was over, because in my lifetime I would have loved to release a mixed CD compilation. Like the Ministry of Sound used to do them, Head Candy used to do them, and this and that. I would have loved to do that, but nowadays, do you even have no? You have a CD player, but most people don't even have. The only place where people have CD players now is in their cars.
Right. The commercial market doesn't even have it anymore. Yeah. So do you think do you really believe, coming from the beginning of the YouTube era and basically falling into the lucky part that you were there first, as you say, does someone who's starting out have the same chance of achieving what you were able to achieve?
Yes, they do. They do. But they have to go about it a different way. You know what I mean? Like, for instance, because nowadays there are a few problems. Is now everyone is putting their mixes on YouTube, so it's already just too many mixes. And then number two, you have to deal with copyrights. And then also the third strike is that the person putting the mixes out there, probably they're not known. Like, if a big name puts the mixes on YouTube, people know people know the person is a household name, so people are going to gradually gravitate towards that. you know. Whereas if you are known, well, nobody knows who you are. But now also YouTube is blocking your mixes, because if you are known, you have to play music that people know at first, and then once they know you, you can do whatever you want. But then I found that now these people have been a little bit creative. For instance, there's this guy in London or in the UK, I don't know where exactly. He has like a whole DJ setup, like a portable DJ setup, and then he goes in the streets having some jams, you know. And then he's like so there's like people following him, and then people, and then he records that, and then he uploads it. And then there's this guy, he does like, for instance, some old school. I actually don't even know how the hell he gets away with the copyright. He actually plays vinyl of like classics, like of the disco classics, the 70s and 80s. And I don't know how he managed to get away with it. And also there's like, for instance, now if you add like some instruments, or if you're doing something, a set, and you record it from like somewhere really beautiful, it's not too late. It's not impossible, but it's much harder. But because it's much harder, actually is the reason why everyone should be doing it, because people come and say, no, not for me. And then, so naturally it limits competition, So it's not too late, but it's not the only difference between when I started and now. It's like now it's a little bit harder. That's all. But if the person is not scared of hard work, it's going to be fine.
So the person has to find records that are pretty much like underground, that are not mainstream style records.
Yeah. Right now I get, of course, that's the biggest irony of life. I get sent a lot of promos from people who are starting out, you know what I mean? Unfortunately, some of it, I'm not saying it's garbage or not, because it's not up to me to say, but it's not what I like. Because I don't think music is good or bad. I just see music as in I like or don't like, Again, that's how I'm going to put it in a very Canadian way. So sometimes people send me stuff and I'm like, and I don't like it. But sometimes I think, like, for instance, because that's because I think I have a big enough name that I could, if I had the funds, I would actually become a label and commission people to make music just for me. And then I'll play it on YouTube. And then I would monetize by myself, and then buy more music, and then pay everybody and this and that. So if you really want to start music, go to something very obscure. And literally, as a house music DJ, it's not difficult. Go on YouTube, Track Source, and buy music from there. Just stay away from Defected, because those guys they will block your music like there's no tomorrow. Like all the big house labels, they'll block your mixes like there's no tomorrow. But that's a good thing, because it forces you to dig and to go look for the non-obvious. And that's how you stand out, is by not playing the non-obvious music. If you go on Track Source, and it's always the same names in the top 10. It's always the same names. It's the same names, different song. And that becomes a little bit, okay, it's not really making things go forward. The way I buy my music from Track Source is I go from recent release, everything. And I don't even care about the genre. And I listen to everything. And I pick and choose. Because it reminds me of the record days where things were not categorized. You just went and you listened. Because sometimes, for instance, you'll see a song that says, a category that says, broken beat. But then you listen to the song and you actually listen to a very dope, deep house track. It's just because the main track is broken beats, but then everything else is not. So I found that the only way to judge music is with your own ears, and forget the labels and this and the genres and the artists, is with your own ears. So if you want to make it on YouTube, you can actually make it if you play very, very, very like obscure music before it hits. But then the problem with these bastards is that sometimes the music becomes famous, then they go on YouTube and they block everybody who have the music there, in the mixes. And they forget that it's partially because of content creators that your music made it this far. And now you're blocking them because you only want to have everyone coming to your channel to listen to that specific piece of song, which is a little bit, it's not nice, but I understand people have to survive their own way. It's business, but it's not cool.
Here's another question that I bet a lot of people are asking. Have you now stepped out of the DJ and working to production now? As JaBig the producer now?
Well, that's It's an answer. I have to answer it. Okay, I'm just gonna answer it for me. So what I say for me doesn't mean that I'm attacking anybody out there. So please, I know I ride the bicycle. Don't drive me. Don't come and like hit me with your car because you don't agree. I'm just saying it for me. I'm just saying my perspective. I don't play an instrument. I have no business making music. Simple as that. I know nowadays you can have software, or I can go hire people can make music for me. I can just whistle something and then you can write something. Or I can work with, or I can have people in the studio and this and that and can do their own thing. And that's not for me. That's not for me. Just as eating white chocolate is not for me. That's not for me. For me, I believe that if I'm creating music, it should come from my own mind and my own hands, and I should be doing it. But I don't know how to play an instrument. So I've had some stuff done with people where I contributed my ideas. But at the end of the day, well, the way it came out is not the way it was in my head, because I cannot bring what's in my head into real life. And until the day I'm able to do that, I'm just going to stick to being a DJ. Okay, that was the truth. Now, the diplomatic answer is that I'm too busy being an adventurer to find time to sit down in a studio and make music. So I'm too busy. That's usually the version I give to everyone who wants to know. But the truth is that I don't know.
What do you mean adventure? What are you climbing rocks? What are you on cliffs? What are you skydiving all day? What do you mean adventure? What kind of adventure?
I ride bikes. Like when I rent to ride, of course.
Nobody's heard this yet. What does that mean? I ride a bike. What your definition of, I know what it means. I go to the store, I bring my bike, I tie it up, I go home, my day's over. You don't ride bike like that. You ride bike for like months.
Yeah, so I do the same thing that you do. It's just that I do it over long distances and over a longer period. So basically what I do is, again, everything has to be a story. How much time do you have?
We'll tell you when the time is up.
All right. Okay, excellent. I like that. So as a DJ, so I ride bikes, when I say adventure, I like to embark on rides and just, for escapism, because I don't know, I just really like being on a bicycle, but it also turns out that it's something that I'm good at without being good at it, without knowing. I'm just naturally good at it, meaning I can barely fix a flat tire. I mean, barely. I think I've done it once, and it wasn't even for me. It was from some random person on the side of the street, and I couldn't believe it that I managed to do it. I was trying to be a gentleman, and that day it worked. So I ride bikes for escapism and for adventure because I found that it's one fun way to see the world. And so my claim to fame in the cycling world is that I rode across Canada in winter on a fixed gear bike. I'll let you Google what a fixed gear bike is versus a normal bike. But I think what freaked people out and me the most is that I did it in winter. And I'm talking about Canadian winters in the mightiest, like we're talking about -40, because I know that -40 is Celsius and Fahrenheit. That's when the only time they meet. It's -40. I've done it at -40, meaning -40 were the extremes, but I've ridden my bike. I rode it from the Atlantic Ocean all the way to the Pacific and then all the way to the Arctic Ocean. It took me 15 months. So that's why. So to answer the previous question, I don't produce because I was too busy riding across Canada. So, but also it's because I found that when I was nearing my 40s, it was those, because as time go by, the house music scene is shrinking. So to make a full-time living being a house music DJ and keeping it real, it's harder and harder. It's actually, I actually don't know, except for the big time DJs or the classic DJs, the big ones, and I don't want to name them because the problem with naming names that you forget other names and then you offend people. So I'm just saying the big, the people who were there from the beginning, they still, even them, they still have this. The fact that they still have to work hard to stay on top, means that for me, it's just complicated. But also, I knew if I'd gotten and become a producer, I could have gotten far in my DJ career, because it seems like you can't be a DJ if you're not a producer. To make it, if you cannot be, an established, I never understand why people ask me, "Oh, you're a DJ. What do you produce?" I'm like, "I'm a DJ. I'm not a producer." But to be, you cannot be a famous DJ, or you cannot go find your DJ live if you're not a producer, because it's your music that does the advertising for you, you know. Or you can just own your club or own a radio station, you know. But again, these are not. I don't like my face and I don't like my voice, so I've no idea, you know. That's why I do mixes. I don't do.
So I'm gonna talk from the people watching this. When you're cycling, are you cycling just for you, or is there an intrinsic part to it? Are you raising money? Do you have a camera crew with you following you across this trek? Filming you through the whole thing? Is it going to a television show, or is it any of that kind of stuff going on with the bicycle stuff that you're doing?
All right. Okay. Yeah. So I ride bikes for fun, and I ride bike for adventures. But then one time I realized that it was capturing a lot of attention to because actually I have two different fan bases. There are people who are fans of my adventures. They don't even know that I'm a DJ. Oh, you DJ? Oh, my little cousin's a DJ. And they're like, no, I'm actually a full-time DJ. They're like, oh, wow, okay.
My sister and my mother and my aunt are DJs.
Yeah, exactly.
They all play the sync button. It's
like,
yeah. Like, whoa. I'm like, whoa, to you too.
Yeah, and then some of people in the music world don't even know that I ride bikes. So what I do is I ride bikes. In 2016, I decided to ride across Canada, and I rode across Canada because I just needed to clear my mind. You know, some people walk around the block. I ride across Canada. I had bigger issues.
Can I stop you for a second?
Yes.
Did everybody remember watching what's his name? Jim Carrey, Forrest Gump, when he just jumped on the bike and rode across America?
It wasn't Jim Carrey. It was something Hanks.
Oh, Tom Hanks. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Tom Hanks. Yeah.
When Tom Hanks just jumped on and he rode and he rode and he rode. Is that what this is where it's going, like that? Like
people like that was the nickname. Like what you know now you're the African Tom, you're the African Forrest Gump. And I said no, because I was getting to a stage where I needed to make a decision. As in, do I keep on being a DJ, or do I give it up because it's not, deep house and house music is not paying my bills as much as I want anymore. So either I can also compromise and start playing wedding and because I have a big enough name that if I played corporate events and weddings, I'd make a killing. I could charge a lot of money just because of my name. But then the problem, that music churns my soul and I can't do it. So I was at that stage. So I'm like, you know what? I need that sabbatical. I've been a DJ for maybe 20 years and I need to take a break. So then I went to ride across Canada, and I did it for me to think about life and everything. That's why, it was fun because I was out there by myself. Nobody had any expectations for me. But then I said, I kind of like that. So then I kept riding more and more. But this time I said, you know what, I should ride for a cause. And that's when I did some research and found a charity called World Bicycle Relief. And basically what they do is they provide bicycles to children in Africa, especially, young women, so that they can just go to school. Because the reason sometimes some kids don't go to school is just because school is far. And, some of them would wake up at 4:00 in the morning to make it to school, and then they can't even study because they passed out on the desk. They're tired, So the World Bicycle Relief pretty much gives them bicycle because, most of you who ride bikes, you know that the difference between cycling and riding is, you faster by bicycle. So then I decided to raise money for them.
Why that charity? Is that because of it being that there's no infrastructure in some of these towns in Africa? Like, for example, there's no mass transit or busing to get these kids. Is that the reason? Because people don't understand that in the Northern Hemisphere. They don't get it. They don't really know what's going on there. They just think, well, everybody goes to school. Yes, you can go to school. It's how do you get the schools are 8, 9, 10 miles away, 12 miles away, right? They're far from these schools.
Actually, that's a good question because I grew up in Africa, so I'm aware what it is, but then I realized that some people don't know what it is. So sometimes school, it's not like here in North America, we have a school on every single block. Sometimes school is just one school for maybe a whole, a bunch of villages, but the school is far. Or some people who live in rural areas, they have to go to the cities to the school. And it's a question of transportation. Not everyone has cars, and some of these places where these kids live, they don't have like proper roads where cars can go, and there are no buses, there's no mass transit. So the only way to get around is to walk. But walking, you're young, you can't get there. So then some of the parents say, oh, well, they're not going to get an education, and especially for women, then it limits your opportunities. And so this World Bicycle Relief said, okay, we're going to provide bicycles to children so they can get to school. And it's just crazy because once they get to school, they perform better and this and that, and and they grow up with a kid. It's funny because the bikes that they have, the tanks, I've seen the tanks, and some of these kids grew up with them until they finish school. And then and I said to myself, I mean, I ride very nice bikes. And nice, it's a very political correct way of saying very expensive bikes, just for my own enjoyment. And out there, it's a bike that's out there to save lives, because economic empowerment is saving lives. Simple as that, And I ride bikes, and I'm grateful. I know that compared to millions of kids in Africa, as an African, my life was of privilege, because privilege is relative, but mine was pretty much better than, the reason why I'm talking to you right now, it's just because I come from a family of parents who are educated. Simple as that. It's not because I'm better than anybody. It's just because I was born into a life of privilege. And I see it as my duty to give back, and my way to give back is to provide that same opportunity to others so they can get to school. And then what you make yourself as an adult, that's up to you. But at least you got that chance to get to school and get the fundamentals. And of course, it was riding bikes. And if my audience is comprised of people who ride bikes, they're going to understand the cause better. Because, if you tell somebody we ride bikes for fun, but for some, it's a survival tool, then you are more prone to donate to the charity. And so I started raising funds for them, and so that people know all the money that's raised. I don't even touch it. It's on the platform. My job is just to tell people, hey, just go there and make a donation. So it never ends up in my pocket. And also they're very highly rated. You know that some charities out there, you give a lot of money, but then you see that the CEO is driving a Mercedes-Benz and this and that, and they're doing well. Now for them, they manage. I mean, one of the things I like is that, for instance, they don't have big offices. They work they work remotely. They work at home. So that's why I went for some of them when the pandemic hit. It was business as usual because they work from home anyway. And they manage, they're very good stewards of the money, and I like the what they do. But I also like that they don't have this colonialism approach to it, which is, hey, here we come to save Africa. Let's just throw bikes over there, and then all of you bow down to us. What they do, they actually do something that's very efficient. They send the parts, the back components, because a bicycle is a sum of many parts. They send them to specific places in Africa, and then there are people whose jobs. So they create jobs by having people. They become mechanics. They put them together and this and that, and because so that when the bicycles are worn, the kids can take them to the back shops and they get repaired. Because that's a problem sometimes when people donate bikes. Well, you send a bike there, but then there are no parts. So if the wheel, like for instance, cracks, well, that bike is no good. Then it's just become a dumping ground for your bike. So then they create a whole economy around it, which makes it almost sustainable. There are mechanics, there are this and that. And that's what I like about the whole approach. It's just giving a chance to people to empower themselves. And for me, so when I'm riding, I can just ride for me. But then if people are like, oh my gosh, what is this guy doing? What are you doing it for? I'm like, oh, just donate to World Bicycle Relief. And then for me, it's my way of giving back, feeling good about, because as a Christian, it's also something that's very fundamental to me to give back, and also I think as a human being, it's, when we have a platform and a voice, it's our responsibility to put it to good use, because I can sit here and talk about me all day, but every now and then you can talk about some things that are others, for others to make the world a better place. Because at the end of the day, if anything that this pandemic has taught us, if we're learning, is that we're not okay until everyone is okay. And I want to make sure that all of us are okay.
And in this day and age, we should be having no world hunger with all the money in this world. We've talked about this with all of us constantly.
Yeah. I mean,
at this stage of our lives. There should be no world hunger. Everyone should be okay, and the health system and everyone should be healthy to a certain extent. Of course, genetics and all that play a major role, but we shouldn't be having poverty, which is taking away the chance of having quality of life. And I appreciate that you're doing all these wonderful things for the quality of life.
Yeah, I have opinions on that, and I can go on, and this will become like
I mean, we watch TV. You watch CNN, MSNBC, BBC, ABC.
Yeah, but...
And you just sit there and you go, at this stage, in this century, with all the money running around, there should be none of this anymore. But...
Well, I tell people, stop sending money to Africa, stop, doing things to Africa. If you just stopped... I told people, if you just told your government to stop destabilizing African regimes, and if they practice fair trade, that alone would, actually not that alone, that would change the world. It doesn't make sense that gold is sent back, is sold. Like, let's say people who live in, like, for instance, in the Congo, they have to buy gold that was imported from Europe, but to extract it from their land. And millions of people die in doing that because the trade is not fair. If the trade was fair, then African countries would be some of the wealthiest. I mean, they are, but they're not the one benefiting from the wealth. So if the West and some Asian countries stopped that exploitation and made the trades fair, that alone would eliminate world hunger, because there's enough food, there are enough resources for everybody. It's just that the few are hogging them. But I don't want to be called a communist, and like I said, I ride a bicycle. That's a problem.
Socialist, communist, capitalist.
Yeah, and I ride a bicycle. When you ride the bicycles, you have to be mindful of your strong comments, because people can say, "Oh, that guy in black, that's the one who said something, who was talking crap on YouTube. Let me just run him over quickly."
Yeah,
So I have to be mindful. I have to be mindful of my, of some of my stances when.
Well, the last. I'm going to give you one or two final questions here. Do you actually realize the inspiration you're setting out to the younger generation because of all your YouTube videos and everything? You're becoming like the Arnold Schwarzenegger of dance music, in a sense. The Terminator in a good way. You're doing something. Kids are watching this and saying, "I could be like JaBig. I could be rich and famous," because they don't know how Hollywood you are or not.
Yeah.
Or they don't know that you're not like MC Hammer sitting in his big house, his mansion, and they just see this. He's got millions and gazillions of followers. And
I mean, I'm a very rich man because I'm healthy and have my freedom. For me, that's wealth. Now, to some of people who come up to me and say, "Hey, can you lend me 50,000 euros?" I'm flattered that you think that my bank account has even seen such numbers. But, I'm flattered, but, wrong person, you know what I mean? But but the whole thing about inspiring the next generation, it's a byproduct of what I do, but I don't want to take responsibility for that, because I'm human. I have my own flaws. So I don't, just pick the good and forget about the bad. But don't worry, I'm very good at hiding the bad. So you're not very likely to find it.
I just want to say thank you so much. I mean, you are an inspiration.
Thank you for having me.
I even think more than the DJing. I mean, it's super cool that you play on the YouTube channel and you do the virtual stuff and DJ. I'm really impressed with the bicycling. That's amazing.
Thank you.
That's really incredible.
Thank you.
I want people to realize, he said, tell us a trek that you're going to do. You're thinking about going down to Vancouver. You were telling me be off screen.
Yeah. So I want to ride around the US to raise money for World Bicycle Relief. And so I was meant to, initially I want to fly to San Francisco and start from there, because I've done my winter bit. I've ridden across Canada in winter, and I'm sick and tired of winter. It's cold.
It's hard. It's cold and hard. Yeah.
So, but also it's just because I wanted to go do Texas and all the desert. I wanted to do them when it's still, when they're still
doable.
Doable. Yeah. And then basically, go along the Pacific coast, the Mexican border, the Atlantic coast, and then the Canadian border. Pretty much do a loop within continental US. I know I'm not doing Alaska and Hawaii and all of that. I'm talking about continental US. And I don't need to do Alaska because I did the parallel in Canada. It's the same thing. And so it's to raise money for World Bicycle Relief. And, and like I've been telling some of my fans, who knows, every now and then you might hear of some random parties where I'm spinning. So you have to stay tuned.
All right, people. JaBig, we want to give you a congratulations in 22. Do what you do, brother. Raise that money. Keep putting those great mixes on YouTube. You got a lot of, I'll tell you, he does some of the sexiest mixes I hear from the women. This is what I hear back from the women. His mixes are so sexy. I'm like, well, then here's my answer, JaBig. Keep making those sexy mixes for YouTube for those women, boy, because you got more women than guys following you. And JaBig, where do they find you outside YouTube? Can they send comments or anywhere? Because people have been asking me, is there any way to contact you, send you their music? Because there's a lot of up-and-coming producers that watch this show that are inspired by what you said, that you like to get obscure things and things that are fresh and new that maybe others that are not going to jump on, maybe something that you are feeling. Is there a place to send this to?
Email is the best. Email is the best because email, it's, and then don't send me attachments, send them by WeTransfer. Send me stuff to download my email is very easy. It's very easy to remember. It's JaBig@jabig.com.
You heard that, people. JaBig at JaBig, JaBig.com.
Very easy, And then to follow my adventures, what I'm up to, it's on Instagram at JaBig on Instagram. And, and I do reply to my messages, by the way, like sometimes people, they write to me and then they get surprised, like, oh, you replied. I'm like, well, you wrote to me.
I like your humor. I really like your humor. It's like, but you wrote to me. What am I supposed to do? Not answer?
Yeah, the only thing I don't reply to is when people send me a message and say, hi. Then I'm like, okay, this is going to be like a ping pong game and I don't have the time for that. As in, it's okay. State your business, like go straight to the point. Time is short, go to the point, say what you have to say. And, and if you take the time to write to me, I'll take time to reply back. It might not be a long essay depending where I am or depending what you're asking, but I'll always reply. And I'm always interested to know who's listening to my music because, I don't take it for granted. I mean, I'm not blind to the fact that YouTube can say, screw JaBig and they delete my channel. And then I go back into the oblivion. You know what I mean? I'm not blind to that, I mean, I have an email list and I have Nextcloud and this and that. I'm not going to completely disappear, but a big presence of mine on that would be, So it's one of those. I'm enjoying it while it lasts and trying my very best to stay very humble.
So you answer all your fan mail, then?
I do. But it also gives me something, and this is the funny part. Sometimes when I'm out there riding and I'm tired and I wanna, and I just want to rest, I'm like, oh, okay. And then I just reply to emails. Oh. So I always find time, yeah.
All right. JaBig, thank you. Don't leave us. I want to say one